The world is an extremely complicated place. Trying to make sense of it more often than not leads to confusion and the acceptance of our own limitations. That is not necessarily a bad thing. Understanding your limitations can make you intellectually humble. In that state, you are more open to alternative approaches and more prone to the adoption of more creative methodologies. Notorious investor Charlie Munger famously said, "And so just as a man working with a tool has to know its limitations, a man working with his cognitive apparatus has to also know its limitations." Your biggest weapon is self-awareness, and that includes understanding every constituent of your selfhood, strengths and weaknesses, especially if you're young and your identity is still crude. 10 years ago, when I was in my early 20s, my main concern was how to escape the incompetence associated with my being young and inexperienced. 10 years later, I'm here, creating this video, having moved from crudeness to refinement and attempting to creatively elucidate the worldly wisdom I managed to attain. That process wasn't invariant, but rather quite multifaceted. It entailed the employment of various models, especially mental models, i.e., ways to enhance your repertoire of cognitive skills in order to make more intelligent and sagacious decisions. Mental models form something like a neural lattice work, that is a mental construction that can allow ideas to interlace and merge in order to offer the best solution when complex problems arise. You can think of a mental model as a heuristic that utilizes memory and intuition in a very special and effective way. The mental models are many. Some are considered common knowledge and some quite sophisticated and specific. The vastness of the lattice work they produce makes it intimidating for one to even decide to deal with them in the first place. This video is an attempt from my side to make this process easier and offer a primer to the 5 mental models I considered most interesting but also most universal. I hope that after grasping the concepts, you will take the time and effort required to explore them even further and eventually internalize them. There is this great book by British-American author Simon Sinek called Start With Why. Its premise is that leaders who want to inspire action need to make sure that their message is communicated in a precise and well-articulated manner. When they want to move forward and share their vision, the fundamental element of their message should be the why. In essence, the power of why lies in the fact that it can evoke a series of questions that will allow a person to bring more awareness to their experience and eventually reinforce their sense of inner purpose. The why is the predecessor of justification. With the right justification, our reasoning becomes crystallized. We no longer operate in an abstract and aimless fashion. We are ready to take action. The power of why is so potent and its applicability so universal that it can eventually morph into a mental model. People have been using the power of why since the ancient times to inspire action-taking and to energize crowds. In fact, the why model is also a great tool when it comes to determining personal meaning. For instance, psychotherapists usually try to help people escape their inner struggles by attempting to raise awareness via the why model. The client can enter the discovery plane, go back in time, face challenging events, and associate them with current behavioral patterns. This association gives rise to why, and eventually the person can work towards the how. Ivan Petrovich Pavlov was a Russian psychologist known for his work on classical conditioning. Classical conditioning is a buzzword that refers to the procedure during which a biological stimulus like food, when paired with a neutral stimulus like a bell, can form a learning process. During this process, the subject, in Pavlov's case a dog, when it makes the association, it manages to elicit the same response during the neutral stimulus as it would during the biological stimulus. Pavlov's dog, when it encountered food, started to salivate. After the association took place, it started to salivate just by listening to the sound of the bell. The significance of this discovery is monumental because we realize that it is an enormously powerful psychological force in the daily life of all of us. Pavlovian association is used consciously and unconsciously by various agents in the domain of marketing and general influence strategy. When Coca-Cola, for instance, decides that it wants to be associated with great events like the Olympics and employ alluring images in their ads, you can't help but associate Coca-Cola with something beautiful and enjoyable. When Trump decided to reutilize the slogan "Make America Great Again," he seeks to create an association with past glories and through guileful romanticism to evoke feelings of nostalgia for the good old days.
The power of Pavlovian association lies in this effect. Most of the work is done at the subconscious level, and our attempt to escape it is oftentimes fruitless. I consider Pavlovian association a great mental model for both self-awareness and influence purposes. Making sense of when we act or react based on mere association is a great way to understand concealed aspects of our personality. Furthermore, making sense of when other people act or react based on mere association can work wonders in our effort to influence them.
Le pouvoir, c'est des relations. Le pouvoir, ce n'est pas une chose. C'est une relation entre deux individus, et une relation qui est telle que l'un peut conduire la conduite d'un autre, ou déterminer la conduite d'un autre. La déterminer volontairement en fonction d'un certain nombre d'objectifs qui sont les siens. Autrement dit, quand on regarde ce qu'est le pouvoir, c'est l'exercice de quelque chose qu'on peut appeler le gouvernement, au sens très large. On peut gouverner une société, on peut gouverner un groupe, on peut gouverner une communauté, on peut gouverner une famille, on peut gouverner quelqu'un.
Michel Foucault focused most of his work on power and authority and understood clearly that power can play a significant role in the way people or entities influence the fabric of society. In my opinion, our overall approach towards authority can never be fully functional. However, the eminent rise in awareness over the last decades around the topic does portend a tidal shift towards its proper evaluation.
Bias from over-influence by authority is fostered from a young age, and as long as the individual surrenders, so to speak, to authoritarian figures, the bias will remain. Authority creates security, but this security is nothing more than a substitute for emotional attachment, which in turn inhibits the ability of the individual to cultivate self-ownership. Bias by authority is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can clearly instigate malevolent acts if individuals don't recognize its effect on their decision making. As a contrarian, I'm not here to suggest only politically correct approaches to daunting issues. I understand that concepts like authority constitute a grey area in our moral landscape. Most probably, we will never be able to escape its omnipresence. This is the reason I present it as a mental model. Becoming aware of its ubiquitous nature can offer a way to deal with power and authority in the most human way possible.
The word entropy, from Greek entropia, a turning toward, was invented by German physicist Rudolf Clausius in 1865 in his attempt to measure the level of disorder within a system. Clausius was referring to a thermodynamic system, but since then the word has been popularized in order to explain the change in randomness in any system. Essentially, when entropy is high, randomness is high within a system and vice versa. In colloquial language, when people discuss entropy, they generally attempt to paint a picture of our chaotic world. The realm of cosmos, as it is interpreted by the human mind, is a mishmash of information that needs to be processed. The more complexity we bring to the table, the more we increase entropy.
Our attempt to control this situation on a macro level is futile. Entropy will keep increasing over time, and our ability to deal with this increase becomes a bizarre and far-fetched dream. The Stoics have observed this phenomenon hundreds of years ago, and their philosophy was proposed as a strong antidote. Focusing on things you can control and ignoring the rest is the most compelling argument in our attempt to control entropy, at least on a micro level. Steven Pinker has famously said that the ultimate purpose of life, mind, and human striving is to deploy energy and information to fight back the tide of entropy and carve out refuges of beneficial order. This mental model becomes more and more vital as we age, and we realize that our survival and flourishing is located on the nexus between discipline, conscientiousness, and planning.
German mathematician Carl Gustav Jacobi famously said, "Man muss immer umkehren," meaning one needs to always invert. Inversion is essentially the ability of working backwards. Looking at a result and trying to guide oneself to the initial concept is a powerful mental model, mainly for two reasons. Number one, thinking backwards is oftentimes more helpful in deconstructing the problem than thinking forwards. And number two, pondering the ultimate consequences of a specific course of action can eventually make you more grounded and calm.
The simplest way to understand these sentences is to think that usually, instead of aiming towards abstract happiness, it is better to ensure that we will minimize misery. A reason, for instance, that I admire Elon Musk is because of his pragmatism. Most people get starstruck by his boldness and audacity, but few really recognize that the substrate that fosters boldness and audacity is actually pragmatism. When you accept the chance of your success, even if those chances are, let's say, 10%, you position yourself in a more grounded and serene place. Subsequently, when you try to carefully identify the parameters that may increase the chances of success and reduce the chances of failure, your ability to deal with them becomes more manageable and your desperation morphs into competence and confidence.
I hope that this video worked as a great primer to mental models and what they represent. There are many more mental models to be covered and discovered, and I seriously hold the belief that an evolved mind needs to familiarize itself with as many as possible. Driven by our insatiable hunger for self-transcendence, we become overwhelmed by the vastness of stimuli that bombards our somewhat limited cognition. We aim for coherence, but we get lost in abstraction. A mental model is essentially a secure pathway from abstraction to coherence.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below something cool please, so that more people can discover it. If you want to watch more videos from my channel, check out this one and this one. Take care, see you soon. Adrian out.